Hackers don't guess your password. They let machines do it millions of times per second until something breaks. That's the uncomfortable truth. The image most people have, a hoodie-wearing genius typing furiously and instantly cracking into a system, is mostly fiction. In reality, password cracking is less about brilliance in the moment and more about preparation, automation, and exploiting predictable human behavior. To understand how hackers actually crack passwords, you have to stop thinking in terms of individual attempts and start thinking in terms of systems, scale, and patterns. First, let's talk about the simplest method: brute force. Brute force attacks are exactly what they sound like. A computer systematically tries every possible combination of characters until it finds the correct password. If your password is 4 lowercase letters, there are only about 456,976 possible combinations. A modern machine can burn through that almost instantly. Increase the length and complexity, and the number of combinations grows exponentially, but so does computing power. On its own, brute force isn't always efficient against strong passwords. That's why hackers rarely rely on it blindly. Instead, they optimize. One of the most common optimizations is the dictionary attack. Instead of trying every possible combination, attackers start with lists of commonly used passwords. These lists are not random, they're built from real-world data leaks. Millions, sometimes billion, of passwords exposed in past breaches are compiled into massive databases. If your password is something like password 123, QWERTY, or even London 2024, it's probably already in one of these lists. Dictionary attacks are fast because they skip the nonsense combinations and go straight for what people actually use. And people, as it turns out, are incredibly predictable. But hackers go even further with something called hybrid attacks. These combine dictionary words with variations, adding numbers at the end, swapping letters for symbols, capitalizing the first letter, and so on. For example, if football is in the list, the system will also try football 1, football 123, fundra T-ball, and dozens of similar variations. These tweaks mirror the exact complexity rules many websites require, which ironically makes passwords easier to predict rather than harder. Then there's credential stuffing, one of the most effective and widely used techniques today. Credential stuffing doesn't try to guess your password at all. Instead, it relies on the fact that people reuse passwords across multiple sites. If a hacker gets a list of email password pairs from one breached service, they can automatically test those same credentials on hundreds of other platforms, banking sites, streaming services, email accounts, and more. This works disturbingly well. Even if only a small percentage of accounts reuse the same password, at scale, that's still thousands of successful logins. The hacker doesn't need to crack anything, they just log in. Another key method involves password hashes. Most modern systems don't store passwords in plain text. Instead, they store a hash, a scrambled version of the password generated by a mathematical function. When you log in, the system hashes what you entered and compares it to the stored hash. If they match, you're in. Hackers love getting their hands on these hashes. Once they have them, they can attempt to reverse engineer the original passwords using offline attacks. This is where things get serious. Because the attacker is working offline, they're not limited by login attempts or rate limits. One common technique here is the use of rainbow tables. These are pre-computed databases of hash to password mappings. Instead of calculating hashes in real time, the attacker simply looks them up. If your password is common enough, its hash might already exist in one of these tables. For stronger defenses, systems use slow hashing algorithms like Bcrypt, Script, or Argon2. These are intentionally designed to be computationally expensive, slowing down attackers. But again, not every system uses them, and older databases are often vulnerable. Now let's talk about phishing, arguably the most effective password cracking method of all. Even though it doesn't involve cracking anything, phishing tricks users into giving away their passwords directly. This could be a fake login page that looks identical to a real one, an email claiming your account has been compromised, or a message urging you to verify your details. The attacker relies on urgency and trust to get you to act quickly without thinking. From a hacker's perspective, phishing is efficient. Why spend hours or days cracking a password when you can just ask for it and get it instantly? In many cases, the weakest link isn't the technology, it's the human. Another overlooked method is keylogging. A keylogger is a piece of malware that records everything you type, Once installed on a device, it silently captures usernames, passwords, and other sensitive information and sends it back to the attacker. Unlike brute force or dictionary attacks, this method doesn't rely on guessing at all. It captures the password at the moment it's created or entered. Keyloggers can be delivered through malicious downloads, infected email attachments, or compromised websites. In some cases, they're even installed physically on a device. Then there's password spraying. This is a twist on traditional guessing attacks. Instead of trying many passwords on one account, which would trigger lookouts, attackers try a few common passwords across many accounts. For example, they might attempt Spring 2026 on thousands of usernames. Because they're not repeatedly targeting a single account, they can often avoid detection. Password spraying works especially well in corporate environments where users follow similar password patterns. Let's not forget about data breaches themselves. Once a breach occurs, the data often circulates in underground forums, becoming part of the massive datasets used in future attacks. It's a cycle. One breach fuels the next. So why are passwords still so vulnerable? Because humans are predictable. We choose passwords that are easy to remember. We reuse them across multiple sites. We follow patterns when forced to add complexity. We fall for urgency in phishing messages. We trust systems and people we shouldn't. Hackers don't need to be geniuses. They just need to understand these patterns and automate their exploitation. On the defensive side, there are ways to make cracking significantly harder. Long, unique passwords are one of the most effective defenses. Length matters more than complexity. A password like correct horse battery staple is far stronger than P at SSWURD because it's longer and less predictable in structure. Password managers help by generating and storing unique passwords for each account, removing the need to remember them all. This directly counters credential stuffing, but the core dynamic remains the same. Attackers scale, automate, and exploit patterns. Defenders try to reduce predictability and add friction. The idea that a hacker is sitting there manually guessing your password is outdated. In reality, they're running tools that can test millions of possibilities per second, pulling from massive datasets of real-world credentials, and targeting thousands or millions of accounts at once.
Your password isn't being figured out in a clever moment. It's being swept up in a process designed to break weak patterns at scale. And that's the punchline coming full circle. The biggest vulnerability in password security isn't the technology, it's the way we use it.
If you make your password long, unique, and unpredictable, you're no longer low-hanging fruit. Attackers will move on to easier targets because, at scale, efficiency matters more than persistence. They're not trying to crack your password specifically. They're trying to crack anyone's, and hoping yours is one of the easy ones. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you want more deep dives like this.